All right, moving down from the upper respiratory tract, we're going to be moving into the lower respiratory tract. Now, the lower respiratory tract is going to include the trachea, bronchial tree, and the lungs. Now, the trachea is commonly called the windpipe. This is going to connect the larynx to the primary bronchi. Its walls are going to be reinforced by a C-shaped cartilaginous rings. This is going to prevent the trachea from collapsing, but the C shape, the reason why it's not a perfect O, the C shape allows the esophagus to expand into the trachea when swallowing. Now, the trachea is going to be lined with the pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium and goblet cells. Now, if you remember way on back when we talked about in chapter 4, we talked about cells and different cellular structure. The pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium means that the pseudostratified, so it's not fully stratified, it's not multiple layers of cells. Every single cell touches the basement layer, but because of the, the off-center nuclei, it looks as if it might be stratified. Now, it is ciliated. It has those little finger-like projections on the surface that allow for the streaming of mucus past it to help filter out debris and pathogens. Now, the columnar, they are long, sort of goblet-shaped cells that are producing the mucus, which traps debris from the air as it passes through the trachea. That mucus is then swept away from the lungs and towards the pharynx by the cilia. Now, here's the thing. Smoking can damage the cilia. This is what causes that smoker's cough, is because they do not have the ability to filter out or that dust and debris, and so they're constantly coughing it up because they can't, the cilia aren't moving it out for them. A tracheostomy is when a breathing tube has to be inserted into the trachea. So that is our trachea. Moving down from there, we then have the bronchial tree. The bronchial tree has two primary bronchi that lead away from the trachea into the lungs. The primary bronchi branch is separated into a secondary bronchi branch, which is going to then continue to branch and branch and branch until we reach the smaller bronchioles that are only about 1 millimeter in diameter. The bronchi have cartilage like the trachea, but as they get smaller, the cartilage starts to disappear. During an asthma attack, the smooth muscle of the bronchioles contracts, which constricts it and causes sort of that wheezing sound. Each bronchiole leads to an elongated space enclosed by multiple air sacs called alveoli. Here are our alveoli down here. Now, the lungs are going to be made up of the secondary bronchioles, and the alveoli. The right lung has 3 lobes, while the left lung has 2 lobes. And the reason for this is because your heart is located just underneath the left on the left side. So the lung has 2 lobes on the left to make room for the heart. Each lobe is going to be divided into lobules, and each lung is going to be enclosed by membranes called pleura, which secrete the pleural fluid. Again, this is to prevent friction as your lungs expand and contract and expand and contract. The pleural fluid has surface tension, which adheres to the parietal and visceral pleura, and that surface tension is due to the hydrogen bonds between the water molecules. And because of this surface tension, when the thoracic cavity enlarges, the parietal pleura pulls the visceral pleura and therefore the lungs outward. Don't worry, I know that was a lot of words, but we're going to spend quite a bit of time in our next section talking about inspiration and expiration and that role of expanding the lungs by using that surface tension. So don't focus on that right now. Really what I want you to focus on is the structure of the alveoli found in the lungs. These are tiny, thin-walled, round chambers that are surrounded by all of these capillaries for the exchange of gas in and out of the lungs. So this is going to be the contact point between our circulatory system and our respiratory system, will be the capillaries surrounding the alveoli. This is ultimately going to provide us with a massive amount of surface area for that gas exchange. So what you need to focus on for this section is briefly describing the functions of the organs of the lower respiratory system and trace the movement of gas in the organs of the lower respiratory system, explaining why the alveoli have such a high surface area, or what is the significance of that, what is the benefit of having alveoli with a high surface